Hey guys, today I'm going to compare Lamy Safari, which is a German-made pen, and a Pilot Metropolitan Silver. Both have fine nibs in it. Lamy Safari has a fine black steel nib, and Pilot Metropolitan has a steel nib as well, which is also fine. Both of them are usually touted as starter pens. At least in India, they are not starters. Lamy is in the range of 3000 and plus, and Pilot Metropolitan starts around 1800 and plus. Both of them comes in different colors, and they are more of intermediate pens, at least in India, but in other countries they are both seen as starting pens. Both of them are really good for starters and for writing for a long period of time. So I'm basically going to write pros and cons about both these pens. I'm having a Lamy black ink in my Lamy Safari. This is the standard Lamy black ink, and in my Metropolitan I have Monteverde Jade Noir, which is a dark green ink. Both of them are really solid, beautiful inks. So let me start with Lamy Safari. So I'm basically writing a small sample. This has fine nib and it has black Lamy ink. This is my Pilot Metropolitan. This also has a fine nib. You can actually see that the fine nib of Pilot is actually much finer. Typically Japanese fine nibs are much finer than the European fine. Lamy is more on the thick side if you compare it with Pilot Metropolitan, and this has Monteverde Jade Noir. So I'm going to basically write pros, neutral, and cons for both Lamy Safari and Pilot Metropolitan. So the first and the most important thing is the nib comparison. I think the Pilot Metropolitan nib is really standard. It's a true fine and it writes really beautiful. So I'd say advantage to Pilot, great fine nib. The Lamy Safari fine is great too. If you compare it with the Pilot Metropolitan, then it's not as great, so I'm putting it in neutral. I'm going to say good. Fine nib. Sometimes the Lamy Safari nibs are inconsistent as well. I have used multiple Lamys, and sometimes the fine is not very fine. And you can actually compare different fine nibs of Lamy, and you'll see minor difference between the line thickness. So I'd say a little inconsistent with the nibs, whereas the pilot pilot fines are really stable. Let's look at the grip section. The Lamy has a chiseled grip, which is really easy to handle here, at least for my style of writing. I find it really comfortable. So I feel that the grip section is a real pro for Lamy. It's really good for long writing sessions, whereas the smooth grip for the Pilot Metropolitan is not so great for long writing. At least, like in my case, as soon as I start writing, I feel my fingers are sweaty, and I see that in a lot of blogs and reviews as well. I probably say that smooth grip is not so great for the Pilot Metropolitan. Now, both of these pens come in different colors, but you will see a lot of color variety in case of Lamy Safari. A huge range of colors, whereas Pilot Metropolitan comes in colors, but not as wide range as Lamy. So I'd probably say different colors is one of the pros for Lamy. Whereas not so great range of colors for Pilot Metropolitan. Another thing that the Pilot does well is it has a ink indicator. So it has an ink window from where you can figure out if your ink levels are dropping. So that's like one of the pros. It's an interesting and really easy thing to check out with Lamy. So it has ink window, whereas the Metropolitan doesn't have any ink window as such. That's the cons. Another great thing about Pilot Metropolitan is the metal body. I think it's really good to handle. It's really great feeling to have this pen in your hand. So I'd say metal body feels nice. Whereas the Lamy Safari is plasticky body, not so great. It feels actually very lightweight in your hand. So I'll put this here. It's not really a deal breaker as such, but if I compare it with the Pilot Metropolitan, I feel that the uh, Lamy's plastic body is actually neutral, not so great, not so bad either. One another thing that I wanted to point out is the clip. The Lamy has a wide clip, very solid, and the Pilot has a thin and narrow clip that's also very stiff. I think I particularly don't care about the clips as such, so I'm going to put clip as neutral for both of them. Oops, made a mistake. It's a narrow clip here. One more thing which is peculiar that I found out is that feeling the converter of the Pilot Metropolitan is not as easy. So usually whenever I try to put in ink into my converter for my Pilot, I feel that the converter has a small air gap, and although there are ways to uh, fully fill the converter, it's actually not so straightforward. You have to learn the best practices and tips and tricks, whereas I have found that the Lamy converters are easier to fill, and they usually do not have air windows. I don't know if it's only me or there are other folks as well who face the same problem. So I'm going to say this is a plus for Lamy Safari. whereas for the Pilot, and it's tricky as well. Final verdict, I think both these pens are really good, and you can go with either of them. If you are a collector, I think you should collect both of them. If you just are looking for one of them and you are looking for a metal body and a really great fine nib, then I think you should go with Pilot Metropolitan. If you are looking for a plastic body, if you are looking for a lot of different color varieties for the pen, then I think you should go with Lamy Safari. Both of them are really good, equally well, and I think you cannot go wrong with either of them.